After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, gang? Welcome to another episode of Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. Another victory for the Montreal Canadiens tonight, 4-3 over the Vancouver Canucks. I'll be interested to hear what you all think about the game. Welcome to the show. This is a place for you to come and talk about the game, talk about the Canadian. Give me your thoughts on what you thought about how Montreal played tonight. Maybe some things about what you think generally about the team, how things are going, and we'll get into all of that. We'll talk about how the game went. Also, guys, if you're interested in speaking French here, c'est une émission bilingue. Vous pouvez demander vos questions, donner vos commentaires en français ou en anglais. J'ai aussi une œil sur le match de baseball à côté, alors je vous donnerai des faits saillants du match de baseball entre les Blue Jays et les Dodgers de Los Angeles. Comment on dit ça en français? Le World Series, le série du monde. Comment on dit ça en français? J'oublie comment on dit ça. You didn't catch the full game, Randy? I didn't get to see the better part of the second period either, guys. Unfortunately, my IPTV kind of went squirrely on me a little bit, and I had some trouble there for about 15 or 20 minutes. So I missed a good part of the second period. I did not do a show on the Edmonton game, Randy. It was too late for me. I had some things I needed to do at work on Friday, so I wasn't able to do a show for Edmonton. I probably would have ended up just ranting about the referees for an hour and a half anyway, so probably a good thing that Série Mondiale, of course. I probably would have just ended up ranting about the referees for an hour and a half, so it's probably better that I didn't do a show anyway, and I'll probably not even refer to that game because I thought it was an atrocious performance by the officials, so I'll leave it at that, and we'll move on. So, ce soir, tout le monde, c'est une victoire des Canadiens 4-3 contre les Canucks de Vancouver. 4-3 win for Montreal tonight, guys. Welcome to the show. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. There's a button down below that will allow you to subscribe. We're trying to get our subscriber numbers up to 500. We're about 35 short right now, so every subscriber counts. Once we get to 500, we can do some pretty cool things here on TikTok. Sorry, that's not TikTok. We're on YT right now. We're also on TikTok over there. If you're on TikTok, guys, I see there's 5 or 6 of you on the TikTok channel. Pop on over and join us on YT if you want to be a part of the show. Randy asked the question, guys. Just keep in mind, guys, I'm not here to give you guys to yap at you guys and tell you about the game. I want to have a conversation with you. So follow Randy's lead here, and maybe fire away with questions, comments. I see Mark Yeep. I think Mark, you're new to the show. Welcome. It's great to see you. I agree. A good win tonight. Randy says, did the Habs play a full 60 minutes tonight? I think he meant to say. I don't think they did. I thought they struggled in the first period. I don't think they played very well in the first. They were fortunate to come out of it with just a one-goal deficit. Dobesh, I think, did a good job of keeping them in the game. They again, as I said, I didn't see the entire second period. It sounds like they played a little bit better in the second, but again, not their best hockey. I think they played their best hockey in the first 12 to 15 minutes of the third period, and that was kind of enough for them to get the win tonight. And a win is a win, but again, I think that's a performance where I think they would say that if they could play the way they did for those 12 to 15 minutes in the third period for the entire game, then they certainly would be a much happier. And again, I think that's the way they played in Edmonton. I think they played a full 60 minutes in Edmonton, but unfortunately, the referees had a different idea of that game and kind of took it away from them. So frankly, I think the game in Edmonton might have been the best game they've played all year, all around. So, Randy, Demidov highlights on his assist and goal were outstanding. Yeah, Demidov had a fantastic game, probably his best game so far as a pro. Just looked, just his vision, his creativity, his poise, like especially on that assist on the first Canadiens goal on the power play. He gets the puck in a bit of a scramble in front of the net, and there's all kinds of things going on. There's people laying all over the ice, and most guys would have just like fired it towards the net, right? Just hammered it at the net and said, let's whatever. But he's got the poise and the patience to he's safe. Poise and the patience to make a play to spot Suzuki in the first place, and yeah, I mean that's just special stuff from especially from a 19-year-old. Is he 20 yet? From a young kid. So, do I think Dobesh is the number one guy, or slowly taking over as the number one? I get it. I think I've probably not expressed myself very well on this topic. I don't think that Dobesh is the number one. Do I think he's taking over as the number one? I don't think that the Canadiens will, publicly say that he's the number one. Will he continue to get more starts as he continues to play well? If he continues to play well and Montembeault continues to struggle? Absolutely. But I really don't think that the Canadiens will do anything sort of in a formal, official way to make him the number one. I think, Montembeault will remain the number one in every way other than perhaps the number of starts. I don't think you're going to see a situation where it's all about who the coach feels most comfortable having in the net. And right now I think that's Dobesh. But at the same time, I don't think they're at a point now where they're not going to do everything they possibly can to get Montembeault back to being the guy who they feel the most comfortable with, right? Dobesh is a young guy. He's played, I think, 21 or 22 games in the NHL now. Montembeault is a veteran. He's played for a long time. He's been the number one for a while, and I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt, and I think the team will do everything they can to allow him to regain his form and to get back to being the go-to guy. So, in the sense that Dobesh is playing better and has the hot hand, and they're kind of going to him more often now than they would have otherwise. I mean, I think it was always their intention to use their backup, a little more often than they did last year. But again, as far as formally making Dobesh the number one, I don't see that on the horizon, if I can say that. Randy, you got a comment. I said I wasn't going to talk about the Edmonton game, but it's kind of hard to avoid. On the Edmonton game the other night, Habs players' interviews about referee were not subjective to fines, I guess because the refs were horrible. Well, I don't know what the rationale was behind that, but I do think you're right. I thought that the Canadiens did a good job of criticizing the refs without being too, derogatory about it. They were diplomatic about it to a certain degree, which I thought was probably a smart way to go. I also think that I mean, I don't know that it's an admission by the league that the referees did screw up, although they did. What I really found really infuriating was some of the conversation that was going on in the media about the fact that the Canadiens are now going to face, quote unquote, the wrath of NHL officials because they've come out and spoken about this, and that somehow, because they're a young team and because they don't have a lot of experience, and because they, quote unquote, haven't done anything yet as a group, they somehow are going to, have to deal with referees that are now going to treat them with a bias. And I mean, to me, that's just, a complete indictment about NHL referees, right? If Elliot Friedman on the league's rights holder, right, the official network of the NHL, can go on there and speak flippantly about the fact that NHL referees are going to take revenge on the Montreal Canadiens for criticizing them, and that it's not something that's made a big deal about, that it's almost a given that they would expect that. It's just such an indictment on the way the game is refereed in the NHL, right? The fact that it's like Elliot Friedman will come out and say, because Montreal is young and because they've criticized the referees, they can expect to be treated differently by the referees. I mean, to me, that is just what planet are we living in right now, where we have a league where the referees have that much entitlement and that much autonomy and that much nerve that they can talk to members of the media and say, yeah, we treat teams differently because of things they say in the media. If a team criticizes us, and it's not a veteran team, we're going to go out there and we're going to be hard on them. We're going to treat them, in a way that we wouldn't treat a team that, didn't criticize us, or a team that was, made up more so of veterans. Like, it's like we're talking about gambling these days and about biases and things like that teams have, or that referees or that coaches or whatever. Like, it's crazy. It's absurd. It's like you're living on another planet. Anyways, we're not going to talk about the referees from last game. What's Tristan got here? Dobesh is informally the starter. Again, Tristan, you keep using the word starter. Every game has a starter. I think what you mean to say is the number one. Dobesh is informally the starter. I think you informally the number one. Obviously, they're not going to say it out loud, but it's obvious. Well, again, I'm not talking about them saying it out loud. I'm talking about the way they communicate it between Dobesh and Montembeault, right? We often get caught up in appearances and what things look like from the outside. But the reality is that, Marty St. Louis and the coaching staff are having conversations with Dobesh and Montembeault throughout this process. And, what's happening is that, they're very, very clear with what's going on. And they're doing, the conversations that they're having and the actions that they're taking as far as who's starting and who's not from game to game is going to be designed. It's not a situation where they're going to be like, oh, well, we're just going to give the net to Dobesh and, screw you, Montembeault, you figure it out. Like, the Canadiens will need to have both of these guys playing their best hockey if they want to be successful this year, right? So you can say that Dobesh is the number one and Montembeault isn't, but at the end of the day, if this team is going to succeed, they need both of their goalies to be playing well, right? It's not a matter of having Dobesh playing really, really well and just, having Montembeault play 15 or 20 games and struggling. It's going to be a situation where they need to do everything they can to get Montembeault back to, and to be fair, Montembeault hasn't played well, but he still has won, I think 3 of his 5 starts, something like that. So it's, they're not going to just oh, we now love Dobesh and Montembeault is an afterthought, right? They're going to do everything they can to keep both guys pointed in the right direction. You like this idea of Habs After Dark? Well, welcome, Mark. I'm glad you enjoy it. We do. We try to go live after every game. It doesn't always happen. For example, we weren't able to go live on Thursday, was it? I think was the Oilers game, just because it was so late. The game didn't end until almost 1:30 in the morning where I live in Nova Scotia. So otherwise, we're live, as often as we possibly can. We sometimes also do a show called Habs Therapy Day, which kind of focuses more on some current issues related to Montreal and the league in general. So if you're interested in that, feel free to join us. We also are live during the games on TikTok, and then of course we go live with this show after the game en français aussi. Alors si vous avez des questions en français, ça s'appelle Bleu, Blanc, Rouge, Nuit. C'est une émission à propos des Canadiens de Montréal où on parle au sujet, on discute les sujets qui sont à propos des Canadiens. On parle du match. Alors, on fait le scoreboard, le A-team. We do the scoreboard and the A-team are regular features here on the show, guys. So let's get to the scoreboard here while we have a bit of a lull in the comments and the conversation. If you're over here on TikTok, come join us on YT. We're having a chat over here about the game. So again, as I mentioned, Montreal wins it 4-3. Final score. The first goal of the game scored at 4:42 of the first period from Elias Pettersson. Roenick and Garland, a bit of a scramble in front of Jakub Dobeš's net. The puck manages to get over to Elias Pettersson, who's sitting on the left-hand side of the net, and kind of takes everybody by surprise. He's basically left all alone, and he's able to put the puck into the empty net. And 1-0 for the Canucks at that point. I thought that the Canadiens were dominated a little bit by Vancouver in that first period. Not their best first period of the season. Arguably their worst first period of the season, to be honest, because typically they've played well to open the game. They were fortunate, I think, to come out of it with just a 1-goal deficit. Like I said, second period, I missed a good part of this period because my technical issues with my IPTV. But DeBrusk scored at 6:43 on the power play from Hughes and Pettersson. I can't tell you how that goal went in the net because I didn't see it. That made it 2-0. Canadiens are down 2-0. 15:03 of the second period, Suzuki scores from Demidov and Slavkovsky. I did see that play. Similar to the first goal by Vancouver, a bit of a scramble in front of the net on the power play. Demidov gets the puck, and like I said, it was kind of scrambly, and a lot of players would have just hammered the puck back at the net without even thinking about it. But Demidov is just so cerebral and so, he's just got such great vision. He was able to think about it for a second instead of just taking that, that knee-jerk reaction. Spots Suzuki at the side of the net, feeds across the Royal Road, and Lankinen in nets for Vancouver is not able to do anything. Suzuki's basically got an open net, and he puts it in the net. The Canadiens go into the third period down by a goal. And frankly, the first 12 to 15 minutes of the third period was their best hockey. Early in the third period, Slavkovsky scores on the power play from Demidov and Hudson. Again, another really nice play by both youngsters for Montreal, Demidov and Hudson. Slavkovsky, I've spelt his name wrong on the scoreboard there. If you noticed that, my apologies. I'm noticing it now. But he, it's like Slavkovsky had quite a good game tonight. Was getting his shot away a little bit quicker than we typically see. And frankly, if he starts doing that a little more often, I think he's going to be a pretty dangerous guy for the Canadiens. Mike Matheson then scored on a nice play. He gets the puck sort of at the top of the circle, fakes the shot, makes a little quick move, changes the angle a little bit on Lankinen, and then is able to beat him with a nice strong wrist shot. That goal from Carrier and Bolduc. And then Demidov scores a nice one at 11:09 to give the Canadiens the lead for the first time. To give them a 4-2 lead, from Carrier and Kapanen at 11:09. Demidov he's had a number of opportunities with his shot this year so far, and hasn't been able to bury it. And this one was just another example. He's got a really, really strong shot. He was able to find the hole. After that, the Canadiens kind of went into a bit of a shell, I want to say. Maybe, the last 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game. The Canucks pull their goalie quite early with almost 4 minutes left in the game. Garland scores a nice goal from Pettersson and Hughes. Garland is sort of parked in the high slot. Nice play the Vancouvers like to do is they like to do that deflection from the high slot. So Pettersson spots Garland in the high slot. Garland kind of has his stick set up, and Pettersson shoots it towards his stick, and Garland's able to make the deflection into the empty, not into the empty net, but beats Dobesh at 16-12. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the game is kind of Montreal scrambling a little bit to hold off the Canucks. The Canucks have their goalie out, so they have a man advantage, and Montreal isn't able to score into the empty goal, and they just kind of, hang on a little bit, to be honest with you. I think the Canucks got probably 5 or 6 shots in those last 5 minutes or so, or last 3 minutes or so. But the Canadiens are able to hold on, and they managed to pull out with a 4-3 win. So we'll get to the advanced stats there in a second, guys. Randy has his A team. We're not quite there yet, Randy. We'll get there in a second, but we'll go back to the scoreboard here. I know Randy doesn't like the advanced stats, but we'll go through them really quickly. 58 Corsi, so 58 shot attempts for Montreal, 68 for Vancouver. I think that's a bit of a reflection of how the Canadiens played in the first and second periods. The shots were 31-24. The Canadiens had come back and taken the lead in the shots after being dominated in the first. But those last 3 or 4 minutes where Vancouver had their goalie pulled kind of brought them back ahead. Hits were 20-16 in favor of Vancouver. Face-offs, the Canadiens really struggled in the first period but came back and ended up winning the face-off battle tonight, 38-23. High danger scoring chances. Again, I don't get how Natural Stat Trick counts these stats. They've got the Canucks at 19-6 tonight on high danger scoring chances. So, when you see high danger scoring chances at 19-6, you would assume that the expected goals would be significantly in favor of the same team, but they're not. Expected goals were only 4.16 to 3.88, so relatively close. So again, I don't know how the high danger scoring chances are calculated by Natural Stat Trick. It's a mystery to me. Somebody smarter than me can probably explain it, but I just don't get it. So that's it for your advanced stats. Again, the only stat that really mattered was the Canadiens win 4-3. That's the one that matters. Again, not their best game of the year. Certainly, they struggled in the first period, but overall, it's a win. A win is a win. So that's the story of the scoreboard. Let's get back to your comments. Randy N says we'll need to see the whole highlights soon. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Randy. Oh yeah, you didn't watch the game. Yeah, so you could probably find some highlights on YouTube or something like that. So I know that Sportsnet puts up highlights. The NHL puts up highlights. Randy's A team tonight is Matheson, Demidov, Carrier, and Slavkovsky. Yeah, so you got all the guys with the most points. I think are your choices for the A team tonight, Randy. We're not far off. I think I've got. I think we're in agreement on 3 of those 4, but 1 we're not. Might as well get to it. Let's do it, guys. Let's get right to it. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to fire away. I want to hear from you guys. Want to know what you have to say about it. So, So your A team for tonight, guys, from my perspective, the 4 players on the Canadiens who did the most to contribute to the victory, the best players on the ice for Montreal tonight, I have Slavkovsky, Demidov, Carrier, and Doc. So those are my choices. Again, not too far off from what Randy had. I just thought that Slavkovsky, in addition to putting up points tonight, was, did a really, if you want to, I've said this since the beginning of the year. In fact, I said it last year, but if you want, to hear it from somebody else, you can listen to Arpin Basu on the Basu and Godin Notebook podcast, the most recent episode, basically saying the same things I've been saying about Slavkovsky for over a year now. The role he plays on that line where he's the puck retriever, he's the guy who wins the board battles, he's the guy who does the heavy lifting for the first line. He gets the puck and makes the puck available for Suzuki and Slavkovsky to do. Suzuki and Caulfield to do some of the things that they do. I think that was he's blocking shots more now, but really for him it's about winning those board battles. It's about creating turnovers. It's about the forecheck. It's about giving those players a little bit more room on the ice, giving Suzuki and Caulfield more room on the ice to do the things that they want to do. And, it goes beyond his point production. And I know a lot of people focus on his point production, and there's a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans out there who've called Slavkovsky a bust because they feel like he's not, Coach is a prime example of it, right? Coach Frenchie. Last year he and I got in a big argument about Slavkovsky. He thinks Slavkovsky is a bust because he doesn't produce enough points. And the reality is that if you look at the entirety of Slavkovsky's game, it's not just about the point production for him. Now, the point production will come as he improves and gets better at his game, and there's aspects of his game that needs to get better. But Slavkovsky is not somebody you should be measuring only by how many goals and assists he gets. It's more about how he helps Caulfield and Suzuki and how he, makes that line run a little bit. And the power play too, right? He doesn't get all the points in the power play. And, people have been clamoring to get him off that power play or that first power play unit. And the reality is that first power play unit doesn't work without Juraj Slavkovsky doing the things that he does. Next on the list is Ivan Demidov. I think it's, obvious, Demidov, I think, probably had his best game since coming to the Montreal Canadiens. Not just the goal and 2 assists tonight, but just the way he controlled the play, the way he got his points. Like I said, on the first goal that Suzuki scored on the power play, his vision, his creativity, his poise, his patience to just not again, most players would have just pounded that puck back towards the net, right? It's scrambly. There's a couple of rebounds, and most guys would have just hacked at it and tried to smash it towards the net, hoping that it goes in. But to Slavkovsky, very different story. Demidov instead, is able to spot Suzuki when most people wouldn't have spotted him, and then is able to get the pass to him, which not very many people would have been able to do. And just a very special player. And tonight was doing special things that not very many are capable of. Again, a great game for Demidov. He's now playing on the first power play unit, so he's. To me, it was him being on the first power play unit wasn't necessarily the big concern. The bigger concern was that he wasn't getting enough ice time on the power play. So it was either a matter of putting him on the first power play unit or giving the second power play unit more ice time. They obviously chose the second option, or the first option, pardon me, to put him on the first unit, and that seems to be improving their power play. Alex Carrier, just another solid game from Carrier tonight. Just does what Carrier does, right? I think Carrier has become a very important player to this team with Caden Gooley being out of the lineup. He's a guy who the Jays scores 5-1 in the ninth, Randy. So things are not looking good at the moment. The Jays will have one more opportunity to bat if they can get out of this inning without giving up another run. They've got 0 outs and a man on first. But yeah, Carrier just playing a typical Carrier game. And like I said, his role on the team is even magnified more with Gooley out because he's the kind of the glue that holds together the bottom pairing, right? There's a lot of line mixing going on, and he's the one who's kind of keeping Struble and Jack-Eye together a little bit. I frankly don't love the fact that Matheson is back to getting 25, 26, 27 minutes a game. And that, is maybe a bit of a weakness from Marty St. Louis to a degree, in my opinion. But I just thought Carey had a really good game. And on top of it, he added a couple assists tonight, right? He had an assist on the Matheson goal and the Demidov, the game-winning goal by Demidov. And last is Kirby Dach, and this is probably where a lot of people are going to disagree with me. It's a name that probably the eye test might not be. I thought he had a great game. I think Kirby Dach has had a great season so far this year. I think he's had a great year. I think he's played really, really well. Tonight, he was one of the Canadiens' best all-around players as far as expected goals are concerned. Didn't get on the scoreboard, but again, he's playing really, really well. He's skating better. Similar idea to what we talked about with Slafkovsky, right? He's a guy who, uses his big frame, his long reach, to win battles on the board, to create turnovers in the neutral and defensive zones. He's a guy with a big wingspan, and he takes up a lot of space, and he creates. Again, the Canadiens are predicated. When the Canadiens are playing well, it's because they're killing plays in the defensive zone, they're creating turnovers in the neutral zone, and they're transitioning pucks the other way. And guys like Kirby Dach and Juraj Slafkovsky are keys to that because they're really good at both of those things, right? They're really good in their own zone, and they're really good in the neutral zone, and they're able to create those turnovers and kill plays, and then they're able to make the pass, right? They're physical and big and smart enough to create the turnover, but they're also skilled enough to make that great quick first pass, right? To get the puck up to the guys who are flashing in the other direction. Also very good on the forecheck, right? So again, I thought Kirby Dach had a great game. I think that he is on the, he's a bit of a whipping boy for, a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans and for a lot of the Montreal Canadiens media. And I think a lot of fans and media are afraid to admit that, maybe he's turned things around a little bit. But to me, he certainly has. And I think he's had a much better year this year than he did last year. I think the work that he put in over the summer is showing and paying off. And I think I thought he had that whole line had a good game tonight, right? Like, what is it? Let's get to it here for a second. If you indulge me for a minute while I bring it up. On ice tonight, expected goals for the Canadiens. Who do we have? Dach, 60%, Veleno, 57%, and Bolduc, 57%, right? So that whole line, that was your top line as far as expected goals tonight. So they were on the ice. They created more offense on the ice than they allowed Vancouver. And that, some people may say that doesn't mean anything or that those kind of stats don't have any value, but they certainly do, right? The idea behind hockey is to keep the puck out of your net and to put the puck in their net. And they created more offense tonight than they allowed Vancouver to create when they were on the ice. And that's a pretty nice thing to have from a line like that. They didn't, 11 minutes and 40 seconds for Dach, Veleno 12:52 and 11:57 for Bolduc. So yes, that is the line. Dach, Bolduc, and Veleno tonight, Randy. But I thought Dach had a great game, and I think he's having a great season. Not a great season. He's having a much better season than last year. And again, if he can make his way back to being the player he was at the end of the 2022-23 season, the Canadiens are in business. Especially if obviously it looks like Patrick Laine is going to be lost for the better part of the rest of the season. So a healthy, contributing Kirby Dach will be a huge benefit to the Montreal Canadiens. So let me know, guys, if you agree with my choices. Randy is the only one. Randy's put up his choices for the A-team tonight. Do you have your A-team? Like, who are the guys that you would have selected as being the best players for Montreal tonight? This is, again, my version of the 3 stars. Instead of 3, we do 4, and we focus only on the Canadiens. We don't really care about who had a good game for Vancouver tonight. These are the 4 Canadiens players who did the most to contribute to the Canadiens play tonight. So who did I leave off? Who did you think that I should have added? I'm not married to my choices. These are the guys I picked, but I'm certainly curious to hear if you would have picked anybody else. Is Beck or Roy sent down to Laval? Well, Beck has been sent down. Beck was sent down before they traveled out west. I believe that Roy is still with the Canadiens, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Vera over on TikTok says Demidov, Hudson, Suzuki, and Kapanen. Okay. I don't see. I mean, again, Hudson's the kind of guy who you can probably put on the A-team just about every night because he doesn't really have very many bad nights. I just didn't see him as standing out in the top 4 tonight for me. Kapanen, again, he had a decent game tonight. Kapanen his expected goals for percentage tonight was still only around 31%. So that kind of was a bit of a struggle for him tonight, especially when you consider that he was, on the same line with Demidov. So, anyways, I late crunchy munchies. Go Oilers. Well, I hope the Oilers play better than they did the other night against the Montreal Canadiens, because there's not much chance of them making it back to the Stanley Cup final if they play the way they did on Thursday night. Kapanen, sorry, I'm talking on TikTok over here now. I don't typically answer many questions on TikTok. Kapanen's a solid guy, right? Kapanen is a guy who I think Marty St. Louis, feels like he can count on. He's comfortable putting him out there on the ice, even if he's not, giving a lot of production offensively. He's a guy who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, is good in his own end, and is, structurally sound and does, all of the right things. Albeit, perhaps not the most spectacular guy in the world, even though he does have, four goals, I think, so far this year. Randy says, I chose Matheson because of his blocked shots. What did Matheson have for blocked shots tonight? Let's check it out. Where are we going to find shots blocked tonight for the Canadiens? We had Dobson ended up actually with 5 block shots tonight. Matheson ended up with 2. So Dobson was the block shot king tonight. Dobson with 5, Carrier, Doc, Hudson, and Matheson with 2 each. But yeah, I mean, Matheson had a good game, and I mean, obviously that goal was a very pretty goal. One of the concepts that I think a lot of hockey players, or hockey fans, pardon me, should really try to understand is the concept of the Royal Road. The Royal Road, think of a line running right down the middle of the ice, and sort of, cutting both of the nets in half. And so anytime the puck moves across that line, that's called the Royal Road. And anytime the puck crosses that line, it increases your chance to score a goal, right? So if you make a cross-ice pass that crosses that Royal Road, and then you take a one-timer or a quick shot from the other side, there's a really strong chance of you scoring a goal. And the idea behind it is that you're making the goalie change his angle, right? And so Mike Matheson's goal was even more impressive than perhaps it might have looked, because he did that little move that he made, right? He was basically at center ice, but he made a little move where he cut across the Royal Road and then shot, right? So he faked a shot on one side of the Royal Road, shimmy stepped across the Royal Road, and then shot, and he just that little angle difference made a huge difference. And again, people think of, when you watch Lane Hudson, think about Lane Hudson is keenly aware of the value of the Royal Road and moving the puck across the Royal Road, right? He knows how much his chances, or the team's chances, of scoring or creating a scoring chance are increased by doing that. And if you watch him closely and keep that in mind, you'll see how he is really, really cognizant of that and conscious of it, and uses that as a tool to improve the offense that he brings to the Canadiens. So the Dodgers are up 5-1, and the bottom of the ninth, and Vladimir Guerrero just hit a soft ground ball to first base. Freddie Freeman made the out. So there's 1 out, bottom of the ninth. The score is 5-1 for the Dodgers. Yamamoto is still in the game. He's pitched 99 pitches, so he's about to pitch what looks like a complete game for the Dodgers, and to carry the Dodgers into a 1-1 tie in the World Series with the Toronto Blue Jays. It looks like the conversation's kind of drying up here a little bit on YouTube, guys. I don't know if that means the show should, we should bring the show to an end here. Still a little bit of time left if you guys are interested. Si vous avez des commentaires, si vous vous demandez des questions, si vous voulez parler en français, if you want to ask questions, guys, feel free to fire away. If you're watching the show live and you're enjoying what you're seeing, give us a thumbs up. There's 2 outs. Fly ball to center field. Play is made by Dean. I don't know who that is, but he's a center fielder for the LA Dodgers. He makes the catch. But yeah, if you're enjoying the show, give us a thumbs up. If you want to be part of the community, if you want to join our Recliner Sports community, hit the subscribe button down below. If you're watching live right now, or if you're watching later on in a replay, either way, we would love to have you as be part of our community. We try to give you some intelligent, objective, conversation about the Canadiens. Right, instead of there's a lot of bullshit, to be honest with you, out there when it comes to the Canadiens and what people are talking about. I try and stay away from some of that stuff, some of those false narratives. All of this, the Patrick Laine stuff, there's just a lot out there that's just noise, right? And people trying to create controversies and sensational topics to talk about. Here we try and keep it a little more objective. And if that interests you, then come on by and help us out and join the conversation. So, but yeah, I can't really have conversation with you guys if we're not going to ask any questions. So I see Randy still here. Mark Yeep. Am I saying your name right, Mark? I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but I hope I am. But Mark is new to the show, so welcome to you, Mark. Like I said, we're over here on TikTok as well, even though it's hard for me to pay attention to both screens at the same time. And it looks like the third out is about to be made. The LA Dodgers have tied the World Series 1-1. Yamamoto with a complete game, was it 4-5 hitter? I think it was 104 pitches. Pretty solid performance by that young man. Yeah, great job by the Dodgers to shut down the Blue Jays. Blue Jays, of course, scoring 11 runs last night. They probably would have wanted to have a couple of those runs tonight, but they were shut down a little bit by the Dodgers tonight, brought back down to earth. Now the series will shift to Chavez Ravine for 3 games. And so by coming out of Toronto with a 1-1 series tie, now the Dodgers have the opportunity. They can actually win the series at home by winning 3 in a row. So the Dodgers can end the series at home, having 1-1 in Toronto. They now have the home field advantage, and Toronto will have to win at least 1 game in LA in order to bring it back to Toronto. I've missed this question from Randy. This is a good question, actually. Not actually. I mean, Randy always asks good questions. So Randy says or asks, is Dobson a defensive juggernaut or offensive? Well, what do you think, Randy? What are your thoughts on Noah Dobson? Personally, I think he's pretty good on both sides of the ice, right? I think he's probably viewed more as an offensive defenseman. He's a guy who had a 70-point season 2 years ago, and that's not something that a lot of defensemen are able to do in the league. But I think we're seeing this year, especially with him being paired with Matheson, that he has a pretty solid defensive game. He's a great skater, right? And as a great skater, that allows you to do a lot of things as a defenseman in the NHL, right? As a very good skater, he's good at retrieving pucks in his own end. He's very good at getting back and retrieving the puck and then turning the puck around and breaking, like controlled breakouts. Very good. One of the top guys in the league so far this year. He's able to use his skating to get himself out of trouble. He can skate the puck out of trouble when he has to. He can, recover from mistakes when he has to. Mike Matheson, also a very, very strong skater. So the two of them together are able to do a lot. One can do the things he wants to do offensively and know that the other guy can cover if the need arises. So the two of them together are quite good. And then, of course, on the offensive side of things, your skating is always going to be an advantage. Not just, your speed, but also your agility, your quickness, other aspects of skating as well. So I think that, Dobson is a pretty well-rounded defenseman, especially if he's, paired with the right guy, right? Like if he gets put on a pairing where, he's playing with a young defenseman who's maybe not as good or has a lot to learn, then he's got to sort of limit what he does on the ice. But when he's out there with a guy like Matheson, he can do a lot more, right? He can free himself up to do the things that he wants to do and not really worry about covering for the other guy. And I think one of the downfalls of, or one of the negatives that comes with Caden Gooley being out of the lineup is that you're not able to, to put Matheson and Dobson together and leave them together for the whole game, right? You see that Marty St. Louis is kind of rotating his defensemen a little bit to ensure that Struble and Jackeye aren't on the ice as much as, you got to sort of protect them a little bit. In order to protect them, you've got to mix Dobson and Matheson in with other pairings a little bit. And, in a perfect world, you would have Matheson and Dobson playing a regular shift, 21, 22 minutes. You would have Gooley and Hudson playing a regular shift together, playing 21 or 22 minutes. And then you would have either Jackeye and Struble with Alex Carrier, and they would play, 12, 13, 14 minutes. And that would be it. But now you've kind of got to rotate Dobson and Matheson through, and Hudson, and you're seeing more of a rotation. Just saw the highlights. Not much that Dobesh could do on those goals. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Randy. I haven't had a chance to look at the second goal all that much. The first goal, he really didn't have much of a chance of anything. I think you could argue, I guess, that he allowed himself to get a little bit out of position on that play, but it was a pretty nice play. And again, Royal Road, right? I talked about the Royal Road. Another goal where the puck crosses the Royal Road. The Canadiens' first goal, Royal Road. Puck crosses the Royal Road, and the goalie is unable to get across to make that save. The last goal, again, a bit of not a fluky goal, but again, like I said, that high slot deflection from Garland. That's a play that the Canucks obviously seem to be working on, and would have been difficult for Dobesh to make that save. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Dobesh couldn't do a whole lot on any of those goals. You could make the same argument about Montembeault in Edmonton. I think there's probably, of the 6 goals that he allowed, I think probably 4 or 5 of them you would say that he probably not much he could do. I think you would argue that on some of them he could have been in a better position or not allowed himself to get out of position as much as he did, but what are you going to do? But yeah, Dobesh, what was Dobesh's, let's see what Dobesh's numbers were tonight. 23 shots against, 22 saves. That's not right. That's in only 5-on-5. 31 shots, 28 saves. So he had 4.34 expected goals against. He only allowed 3, so he's 1.3 goals saved above expected, right? So that's a number that you probably don't love, Randy, but it's a number that Dobesh has been quite good at this year, right? It's a number that Montembeault, it's a very, very telling stat for goaltenders, right? It's how many saves they made above expected, right? You would expect them to allow this many goals, but because they've done so well, they've actually saved more goals than you would expect. I believe that Dobesh is near the top of the league this year on that statistic. I will tell you in a moment, because Money Puck tells us the expected goals, or goals saved above expected this year. Jakub Dobesh is second in the NHL. In fact, if we go goals saved above expected per 60 for goalies who have played more than, let's say, 3-4 games, Dobesh is the top of the league. Dobesh has 1.9 goals saved above expected this year. And amongst goalies who have played 4 or more games, that leads the NHL. Spencer Knight has 1.6. Thatcher Demko has 1.4. Jet Greaves for Columbus has 1.3. Connor Hellebuck has 1.3. Logan Thompson has 1.25. and Tristan Jarry has 1.2. So those are all the goalies in the league who have more than one goal saved above expected per 60 minutes. There's only 7 in the NHL, and Jakub Dovesh is almost at 2 goals saved above expected. Well, save percentage is key, but I would say that goals saved above expected is a better stat than save percentage, because save percentage is a stat that reflects to a degree the team that you play on, right? If you play on a really good team, the quality of the shots that you're facing, if you play on a really good defensive team, the quality of shots that you're facing may not be as good as if you're playing on a team that is not as good defensively. So, I mean, goals against average, I think we all agree nowadays that, goals against is not really a goalie stat. It's more of a team defensive stat. I think to a degree, save percentage is a better stat, but it still also depends on the kind of team you play on. If you play on a struggling team or a team that's not that great defensively, not only are you going to face more shots, but the quality of the shots that you're going to face, the danger of the shots that you're going to face, will be stronger, right? And so, I think a stat like goals saved above expected does a better job of isolating the goalie and the contributions of the goalie from the rest of the team, right? Because it accounts for the quality of the shots that you're facing and how hard they are. And how difficult the saves are, and how well you do in relation to that, right? So you're either saving more goals than you would expect based on the quality of the shots you're facing, or you're allowing more goals than you would expect based on the quality of the shots you're facing, right? And so this year, Sam Montembeault is struggling in that regard, right? And he's allowing way more goals than you would expect him to allow based on the quality of the chances that the Canadiens are giving up in front of him. Whereas Dovesh is saving more goals than you would expect based on the quality of the chances that the Canadiens are giving up in front of him. And historically, the last couple of years, that has been a statistic that really has demonstrated how well Sam Montembeault has played. I mean, if you want to just talk about save percentage, you can even talk about save percentage above expected, and you can get really, really deep on this stuff if you want. But save percentage above expected, that's Dovesh as well. I think Dovesh's save percentage is what is Dovesh's save percentage? Let's see if I can find it. Money Puck has a lot of stats here. On goal percentage above expected percentage of block by saves on time. Yeah, I can't find it easily right now. I could find it, but I just don't want to waste all of your time with me just staring at the screen here. So, but yeah, I mean, save percentage is a good stat. I think it's definitely better than. I mean, back in the day, all they ever did was, Martin Brodeur, best save percentage or best goals against average in the NHL. Oh, we're going to give him the Vezina Trophy. And I mean, goals against average is not a goalie stat. It's a team stat. Save percentage is a lot better. But again, I think that a stat like expected goals is even better. What is the stat for Monty? Not good. Not good at all. So Montembeault's stat for expected goals, goals saved above expected is stand by. What's going on here? Why is this? I will tell you in 10 seconds here. So Montembeault has 7.8 goals saved above expected. Sam Montembeault has minus 6.3. Goals saved above expected per 60 is 1.9 for Dobesh, and it's minus 1.3 for Montembeault. So basically, what it's saying is that every game, Montembeault is allowing 1.3 more goals than you would expect, and that Dobesh is saving 1.9 goals more than you would expect. So the difference really is about 3.2. So the difference between those two guys in the amount of goals that they're allowing compared to what you would expect based on the chances that are being created in front of them is almost 3 goals. Right? Well, not really. Let's say, yeah. Save percentage, shots on goal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's again, this is a stat that Montembeault has historically been strong on, and he's not so far this year. So now Dobesh has played 4 games. Montembeault has played 5. Montembeault has faced more expected goals. Even I guess it's an extra game. So, anyways, that's the difference between those two guys, and I mean, I think it reflects the fact that Dobesh is playing much better. Montembeault is struggling. There's no denying that, and I've never denied that. And I just think it's a matter of how do the Canadiens manage this situation so that they have both of those guys contributing and performing at the best possible level, right? How do they get it so that those two guys can partner up, whatever the percentage is between the two of them? Because, like I said, you're not going. If one of them is playing awesome and one of them is struggling, you'd rather have 2 of them playing decent than having one playing great and one playing bad. And that's, I think, where the Canadiens need to try and get to. You also you keep referring, there's people keep talking about the starting position. It's the first, it's the number 1 starter that you're talking about, right? There's a starter in every game. And, they're not going to start the same guy, regardless of who it is, for every game. There's going to be a backup and there's going to be a starter. And it's all about who Marty St. Louis feels most comfortable putting in the net. They're not going to have the same guy play every night. They're not going to have the same guy play back-to-backs, right? When they played Calgary and Vancouver on back-to-back nights, the same guy, regardless of how well they were playing, wasn't going to play both of those games. Just wasn't going to happen, and it's not going to happen. There's 17 back-to-back games this year. They're going to split those no matter what. You're not going to see Dobesh play 2 games on back-to-back nights, and you're not going to see Montembeault play back-to-back games. Well, he's not. Montembeault has started 5 games, and Dobesh has started 4, Randy. So, so far that's not the case. We may see that even out a little bit more. But again, I think the plan all along was for Dobesh to get more starts. I think they wanted to have a quality backup that they could rely on and feel comfortable with more than what they had last year, right? One of the weaknesses of the team, especially in the first half last year, was that they had only, one goalie that they could really count on, certainly through the first half of the season and even in the second half of the season. They don't have any more backups, back-to-backs until late November. Okay. But again, I don't think you're going to see Dobesh play every game. I think Montembeault. They're going to give Montembeault every opportunity. Dobesh is 5-0. Well, not according to. Maybe this stat is not up to date, but I don't. Let me just check to be sure. I will stand by. I think. You're correct. Dobesh is 5-0. So maybe Money Puck has not updated its stats after tonight's game. So both goalies have played 5 games each. They've both started 5 games. Dobesh is 5-0. He has a .940 save percentage. And I guess these numbers with respect to everything will have to be updated because they don't look like they've been updated. Yeah, they're updated up to 4:17 p.m. So they're not updated till after tonight's game. So, yeah, you're correct. So they've both started 5 games each. I suppose I can go here and give you the numbers if you would like. Let's do it. We got time. Where's the goalies? Goalies are right there. Let's do more filters. Let's do Montreal. Let's do regular season. Let's do all strengths. We'll do counts. And we'll hit submit. Montembeault has played 5 games, 298 minutes, 304 minutes for Dobesh. Dobesh has faced 150 shots. Montembeault has faced 120. Montembeault has made 101 saves. Dobesh has made 141. Montembeault has allowed 19 goals. Dobesh has allowed only 9. Save percentage is .842 for Montembeault. .940 for Dobesh. Goals against is 3.82 for Montembeault. 1.77. Correction, you are right. Well, you said he played more games, Randy. They've played the same number of games. Anyways, doesn't matter. Goals saved above expected, 6.56 for Dobesh, minus 6.56 for Montembeault. That doesn't seem right, but it's expected goals above goals saved. Yeah, those numbers are not right. Goals saved above expected is not right on here. Anyways, Dobesh is elite. Well, he has been. Again, hockey fans are very, very quick to put labels on players, right? Dobesh has played 21 games in the NHL. Right, so don't get me wrong. He's playing great hockey right now. He's played great hockey so far this year, and I would absolutely be on top of the world if this was the goalie he was going to be for the rest of his career. If the 5 games so far this year is the way that Jakub Dobesh is for the rest of his career, the Canadiens are set. Jacob Fowler doesn't even matter, right? They don't need Jacob Fowler to be great if Jakub Dobesh is going to play like this. But he's played 20 games in the NHL, right? You don't define somebody by the first 20 games of their career. It's just not. It's not a prudent approach. It's not a. I agree with you, Randy. The numbers are very, very different between the two. But again, we're 10 games into the season. It's a mistake to draw conclusions based on that. And again, the Canadiens are not in a good place if Dobesh, plays the way he's played the rest of the year and Montembeault plays the way, the ideal world is that you've got 2 good goalies, right? You don't want to have, we saw it last year, right? Montembeault played great and Caden Primo stunk. And it wasn't a good place to be, right? It's not a good place to be where you're not comfortable playing your backup. Right? It's not a good place to be where you've got one goalie who's playing great and you have to play him all the time because you're not confident enough in your other guy to put him in the net. Right? We saw that around Christmas time last year. Right? We saw that around Christmas time last year where the Canadiens were playing Montembeault way too much. In fact, he did play at least 1, maybe 2 back-to-backs. There was a situation at Christmas time last year where he played on back-to-back nights. And that's not a good thing to be doing for your goalie, especially if you have visions of being successful in the playoffs. Yeah, 10% of the season is not a very big. Again, Randy, I think you're missing my point here. Is that it's not about again, you want Montembeault to be good and you want Dobesh to be good, right? I don't understand this compulsion that a lot of fans have with oh, I love one guy, which means I have to hate the other guy, or I'm gonna coaches don't think that way. They want both of these guys to be good. They're both Montreal Canadiens. They're both players on the team. They want everybody to be good, right? And that is what is most beneficial to the Montreal Canadiens, is for both of these guys to be good. So you can't just throw one guy away because one guy just happens to be doing pretty good right now, right? Or because one guy's struggling. You need to, as a coach, your job is to get both of them firing at the same time. Right? So you can't just say, okay, well, one guy's good and the other guy stinks right now, so we're going to give every start to one guy and just screw the other guy. Right? You've got to find a way to get Montembeault back to where he's capable of being. It's not a matter of saying, well, Dobesh is great, so we're going to give him the net every single night and to hell with the other guy. One, that's not good for Dobesh, because you don't want to overplay him. You don't want to fatigue him. You don't want to expose him to injury and whatever. And the reality is that Dobesh isn't going to go undefeated for the entire year. Dobesh isn't going to go 59-0 or 61-0 with a .945 save percentage. It's not going to happen. When I talk about a small sample size, that's what I mean. Right? He's not going to be a guy who goes undefeated for the entire season and stops, 19 of 20 shots he faces. It's just not going to happen. So you are going to need Montembeault to contribute. It's just, and that's Marty St. Louis' job. Marty St. Louis' job is to not only, keep Dobesh, going, but also to work with Montembeault. Well, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Randy, but I'm talking about the general narrative that's going on about this, right? This idea that because Dobesh is doing so well, that he should get the net every single night, and that the Canadiens should, declare Dobesh the number one. And you can't do that. You've got to keep both of these goalies at the best possible place that they can possibly be. Well, I apologize if you're upset, Randy, and hopefully that's not the reason why you're leaving. But all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, the Canadiens don't view this situation. Marty St. Louis doesn't view this situation the same way fans do, right? And the fans, believe that because Dobesh is playing well and because Montembeault's struggling, that Dobesh needs to go into the net every single night and that Montembeault needs to become the backup. What I'm saying is, for the long-term benefit of the team, that's not an ideal way for this to happen. That's not an ideal way for this to happen. And Marty St. Louis, his job is to find a way so that both of these guys are firing on all cylinders, and that you don't have a situation where one goalie's playing really good and one's not playing well. You want to get to a situation where they're both playing really, really well. And in order to do that, well, no, I'm not talking about you, Randy. I'm talking about everybody. Right, I'm talking about the general narrative that's out there, and the idea of sort of declaring one as the number one goalie. And I'm glad you're not saying that Dobesh should start every night, because I don't think he should. But you have to find a way to make him, to make Montembeault. Well, okay. Well, I apologize if that's what you think I'm doing, Randy. I maybe I'm not communicating as well as I should be. What I'm doing is I'm referring to the fact that this is the kind of conversation that I'm seeing from the media. This is the kind of conversation that I'm seeing from the people that I talk to on TikTok while the game is on, and it's the conversation that I get from a lot of people here on YouTube. And maybe you can tell me exactly how what do you think it should look like going forward? What is your what is your view on how Marty St. Louis should handle this situation? What is your view, or how would you handle the situation if you were the coach? Like, what would you do as far as, how many starts to give Dobesh, how many starts to give Montembeault? Like, are you like, what's the breakdown on how you think it should be done? Maybe I'm assuming things that I shouldn't be. Jimmy two times says, "Do I think Montreal will win a wild card spot this year?" I don't know. We're still a long ways away from that, Jimmy. I would say that the odds of the Canadiens making the playoffs this year are decent. Certainly, they're better than they were last year. I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs last year. They did. I think this team is better than the one they had last year. I think that so far the season, what are they, 7-3 now through their first 10 games of the year? Things are, certainly headed in the right direction. So I would say that the likelihood of them making the playoffs is pretty decent. Whether that's a wild card spot or making it as one of the top three, I think the odds are strong. But again, there's a long season ahead of us, and there's a lot of things that can happen. Okay, so what does that look like for you, Randy? What does play the hot goalie look like? Like, are you playing him like 2 out of every 3? Are you playing him like you play the same goalie until he loses? Are you playing what does again? I'm trying not to argue with you here. I'm trying to not do that. But like you say, play the hot goalie. So are you saying you continue to play Dobesh until he has a bad game, till he loses, or when would you play Montembeault next? I guess is a good question. Like they play on Wednesday. Is it? I don't think they play. Did they not play again until their next game is not for a few more days? They play on. So they don't play until Tuesday against Seattle. So are we playing, and then they don't play again after that until Saturday. So they've only got one game this week. So they play Tuesday in Seattle, and then they don't play again until next Saturday against Ottawa. So I assume you're playing Dobesh on Tuesday against Seattle. Are you playing Dobesh on Saturday against Ottawa? And while you're typing your answer to that, I will say that for me, I get the inclination, because there's so much time off between the next couple games. While I understand the inclination to say, well, Dobesh should play both the Tuesday game against Seattle and the Saturday game against Ottawa, I would respond to that by saying, how is it going to affect Montembeault for him not to play for over a week? Right? So Montembeault started the game on Thursday. Let me see here. Thursday against Edmonton. And then we're talking about if you start him, if you start Dobesh tonight, which they did, and you start Dobesh against Seattle on Tuesday, and then you start Dobesh again on Saturday, then you're talking about nearly 10 days. I would play Monty against Seattle. Okay, then that's fair. That makes sense. And so, what kind of communication would you have with your goalies as far as where they stand on who's the number one, and who what kind of communication would you have with the goalies? What are you telling them? Are you telling them that Dobesh is the number one? Or are you telling them, okay, well, now it's about the hot hand? Like you said, play the hot goalie. What if you played Montembeault against Seattle and he shut Seattle out? Made, let's not get crazy. Let's say he made 28 saves and shut Seattle out. are you then playing him against Ottawa on Saturday? Like what do you do if Montembeault has a really good game against Seattle? I don't see Monty. Okay, I agree with that. Marty doesn't have to say who's number one. Um, but if what is he? But what is? I get that he doesn't have to say publicly. But what is it? What is he telling? Like what is your approach to the goalies? Like a lot of guys would say that. I mean, again, I'm seeing people in TikTok right now telling me that the Canadiens should officially say that Montembeault is the backup. How does that? Like, how would that? I mean, again, I know you're not saying that, Randy, but again, I would say, how does that impact? Again, if saying that doesn't help the team. Only a shutout, nothing else to stop Dobesh's winning streak. Okay. So what if Dobesh plays on Saturday and gives up 5 goals and they lose? Like, let's say he has a bad game. Are now is Montembeault the hot hand? Like what? I don't know. I think it's more complicated than what it's being made out to be by, again, not necessarily you, Randy, but by a lot of people. It's not a matter of saying, this guy, it's Marty St. Louis' ultimate goal when it comes to his goaltending right now is to find a way for them both to be effective. And right now he's got one goalie that's super, super hot, and he's got one goalie that's not. And while I get that you want to ride the super, super hot guy because he's the guy who gives you the best chance to win, I also think that part of your job and part of your strategy needs to be, how do I get that guy who's not playing so well to get back to where we know he's capable of being? And so, the communication that you have with your goalies, I think, is really, really important. And the way you play them is really, really important. And of course, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on behind the scenes as far as coaching and practices and, all that other stuff. But here's the thing, Randy, right? If you start playing your hot hand significantly more than you play the other guy, then you also run the risk of losing the guy who's got the hot hand, right? Like what if again, yes, Dobesh is 5-0, but he's not going to go, like I said, he's not going to go undefeated for the rest of the season. You don't want to get to a point where Dobesh, that streak ends and he starts to struggle a little bit, or he falls back down to earth, and you've still got a Montembeault that's struggling. PLW, welcome back, man. Long time no see. Yeah, I mean, they're going to need Montembeault, eventually. They need. You're not going to be successful long term in the NHL unless you've got 2 goalies that are playing well. CB's Hockey. I think you're new here, CB's Hockey. Welcome. I'd go Dobesh 2 games, then Monty for 1. If Dobesh has a bad game in that first, then throw Monty in to mix it up. I go that way until Dobesh numbers start dropping. Well, again, yeah, fair enough. But again, I think the point I'm trying to make is it's not as simple as saying one guy's playing good, one guy's playing bad, and we're just going to, ride the guy who's playing good. Because, if you get to a situation where they're both not playing good, then you're completely screwed. And then if you get to a situation where, it's just like you want to have both of them playing well. Do I see Monty starting the next 2 games? I do not. I do not, Randy. I don't. I think that you probably I think I don't disagree with your take that I think that you probably start Montembeault against Seattle, and you probably start, subject to how that start goes. You probably go with Dobesh on next Saturday against Ottawa. Um, I think if Montembeault plays well on Tuesday against Seattle, I think you do give some consideration to putting him back in the net against Ottawa. But I do think you make a really good point, Randy, that then you've got a situation where Dobesh hasn't played for a week, and you've got a guy who's on a 5-game winning streak, and you're running the risk of breaking that for no apparent reason, right? But again, I think that, like I said, if Montembeault has a really strong game on Tuesday, there will be a temptation to put him back in the net on Saturday against Ottawa in an effort to be like, okay, now this guy might be, this might be an opportunity to bring him back. Well, it's not a matter of the question being answered, Randy. Like I said, I mean, if Montembeault does really well, so again, maybe I answered your question wrong. Do I see Monty starting the next 2 games straight? I don't. But if Montembeault plays really, really well against Seattle, then I think there will be a temptation to put him back in the net on Saturday against Ottawa, in an effort to ride that and to use that as an impetus for him to get back on his game. But again, the risk in doing that is that now you've got, like I said, you've got Dobesh, and by not playing him for over a week, now you've got a situation where maybe you ice him a little bit when he's on a hot run. So it's again, I think the biggest point to take out of this is it's not as straightforward and as easy as some people are making it out to sound. Not even until Dobesh numbers start dropping, just try to get Monty to get his confidence back. Yeah, I mean, again, like I said 100 times now, it's a matter of them, trying to find a way to get both of these goalies firing on all cylinders at the same time. Dobesh takes the poll right now, and let's see how it goes. Maybe Dobesh is just elevating himself as a legit, durable number 1 goalie. These stories happened before in the NHL. Dobesh competitiveness is special. Absolutely. And again, I've said it before. If this is the goalie that Dobesh is going to be for the rest of his career, then that's a glorious thing for the Montreal Canadiens. That's a great thing for the Montreal Canadiens. Right? I mean, if Dobesh is this, if these 5 games is what Dobesh is going to be for the next 10 years, then the Canadiens are set in goal. I mean, subject to them being able to have a backup who can do the job when it needs to be done. What is Monty doing really, really well? Monty doing really, really well is probably, first of all, a win. Second of all, having an impact on the game, a positive impact on the game. It's probably, it doesn't have to be a shutout necessarily. It could be, him, if we're talking about goals saved above average, like let's say he does has a game where he's, 2 or more goals saved above average. Like he faces a lot of, quality opportunities and he saves them. And, I think, the win I think is important. But let's say he faces 35 shots, saves 32 or 33 of them, and has a goal saved above expected of more than 2, and the Canadiens win. I think that's him having a good game. It is right now just a matter of organically a goalie taking the number 1 spot. Will it last? We will see. But again, I think the whole idea, I guess it depends on what you consider to be the number 1 spot, right? And I think a lot of this comes down to how things are communicated to the goaltending tandem by the coaching staff. Is that the communication and defining the number 1 spot is a real fine line, right? It's not as simple as it sounds. Like you have to give some consideration to what the impact will be of declaring one guy the number 1. Like, it's about how are you communicating this to those two guys? Like, how are you talking to them behind the scenes? And again, I have no concern about that. I have no concern that, Eric Rameau and Marty St. Louis are communicating in the right way with their players to let them know exactly what their thought process is so that it's not affecting the confidence of either one of them. Habs did win tonight, Gabriel. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back to the show. I think if any goalie plays strong one game, they should definitely get the crease the next game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, if they play Montembeault, I mean, a lot of people will say that there's no way in the world they should play Montembeault on Tuesday against Seattle, right? Dobesh is the hot hand. There will be 3 days off between now and then. There's no reason why you don't play Dobesh, right? That would be one argument. The other argument would be, well, they only play, 2 games in like over, like they play 2 games in like 10 days. Like this is the biggest break they're probably going to have all year. And so, how do you do that? Like, how do you not play Montembeault for over a week? I don't know. And if Montembeault plays well, how do you not come back with Dobesh because he's 5-0 with a .940 save percentage? Like, it's way more complicated than people are making it out to be. Okay, well, maybe I misspoke then Randy. I think there is a scenario. I mean, I personally wouldn't start Monty 2 in a row. But like I said, if as you suggested, they should start him against Seattle, I think there's a scenario where he plays well enough in Seattle that you at least give some thought to playing him also on Saturday against Ottawa. Yeah, I again, you make a great point, CB. I mean, it's, goalies are hot, goalies are cold, right? And right now he's hot, but that's no guarantee that he's going to stay that way forever. With 2 games in 7 days, there is no way either goalie playing both games. I would tend to agree with that, Randy. I would tend to agree with that. I think you're probably right. But again, if Montembeault plays on Tuesday and has a spectacular game, then there's going to be a temptation to play him on Saturday. If Dobesh plays on Tuesday and has a spectacular game, it's going to be tempting to play him, on Saturday against Ottawa. Monty has been durable, looked good when Habs allowed many dangerous situations. Slumps happen in all sports. Bobrovsky was considered to be bought out in Florida, and then he reemerged. Yes, and this is part of what I'm getting to as well, right? Is, to a certain degree, Montembeault has earned the benefit of the doubt, right? Even though he has struggled through the first 5 games of this year, or his first 5 starts of this year, he's earned a certain benefit of the doubt. And let's be, clear about this. The Canadiens are 7-3. We're not like in panic mode here, right? We're not, Montembeault hasn't played so badly that, the team is, it's not like, the first 10 games of last year where it was like, oh my God, this team is really in trouble. They've got to work on a lot. Like this, the team is doing really, really well, despite Montembeault's struggles and, in spite or because of the way, this team is doing well. So there's no need to be in panic mode here. So from that perspective, again, it puts Montreal's coaching staff in a better situation, but also, a different situation. Like, if the Canadiens were, if the Canadiens had won all 5 games that all 5 games that Dobesh had played and lost all 5 games that Montembeault had played, then, the decision might be a little bit easier to make. But again, I think the ultimate goal for the coach is going to be to get to a point where both of the goalies are playing really, really well. Use the hot goalie. Monty understands the situation. He will work his way out of the hole. He needs to step back. It's early in the season. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. And I think that Montembeault, being who he is, both personality-wise and both, with his experience, I mean, he's not a head case. He's a guy who probably understands what's going on. And He's a guy who will, he's a guy who has gotten to where he is because of hard work, right? He's not a guy who, he's not a guy who came up as a superstar and, was a first round draft pick. Like, he's a guy who's gotten to where he is because of hard work, right? He's not a guy who's had everything, go his way his entire career. He's had to work to get where he's at. So he's not, I think he understands all of this. And if you listen to him talk, he gets it, right? He gets it, right? He's not a guy, I don't think he's a guy who is going to get inside of his own head or is going to be intimidated or put off by not getting as many starts. If he, what did he have? 60 some starts last year. He's not going to be a guy who's going to be, oh my God, if I don't get 60 starts this year, then it's because, he's not that guy, I don't think. But again, confidence is an interesting thing, and, we'll see how it goes. There's many back-to-backs. Yeah, I mean, again, Randy says there's no back-to-backs until the end of November. I haven't been able to look that up myself. I'll assume that's true. There's going to be room for both goalies to play hockey this year, which is why I say the best case scenario for the Canadiens is for them to have both of their goalies playing as well as they can, which is why this conversation becomes, if you felt like the goalies could, if this were like the 1970s where you could have a goalie who played, 75 or 80 games a year and your backup was a guy you just put in once in a while, then this conversation becomes a lot easier, right? You just keep playing the guy who's winning. Dobesh, you're going to play every game until you lose. And, we don't like the backup becomes a far less important position on the team because realistically you're only going to play 5, 6, 7 games a year because Patrick Waugh is going to play or Ken Dryden's going to play 75 games out of 82. Joe Carter throwing off the opening pitch. But it's not. That's not the way it is nowadays, right? Your backup is going to play 25 or 30 games, and you need him to be able to win those games or to give you a chance to win in those games. PLW, getting us back to the game tonight. Apart from the goalie situation, there are some good things to take from the game. I think there's good things to take away from everything, even the goalie situation. Right? I think that the fact that Dobesh is playing as well as he is good news for Montreal. Right? Because last year, this time, they didn't have a backup. Right? This time last year, the Canadiens were struggling to even, like, how do you even put Caden Primo in the net, right? How do you even put him in the net? Like, you're scared to death to put him in goal. Montembeault played way too much hockey in the first half of last year. Slafzilla, I like it, has been playing solid. He is getting physically mature, recovering puck, doing the dirty job on the first line, and generates offense also. Well, I hope you had that conversation with Coach, PLW, because this is what I've been saying about Slavkovsky, for a long time now, right? Right? If you're judging Slavkovsky based on goals and assists and points, then you're not understanding the contributions he makes to the Canadiens. And you're right. He's a guy who does a great job recovering pucks along the boards, winning battles, creating turnovers in all zones, and is doing some of the dirty work that allows Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield to do the things that they do. And that's what makes Slavkovsky such a valuable asset for the Montreal Canadiens, and why they see him as a bit of a unicorn type player, and a guy who brings a lot more to the game than just goals and assists. And like I said earlier in the show, if you listen to the latest episode of the Basu and Godin Notebook, you'll hear them talk about this. And, I'm not going to say that they finally get it, but this is something I've been saying for a long time, right? People have been saying that Slavkovsky is a bust since 2 years ago. And that's because they look at his points and say, oh, well, he's a first overall draft pick, and he's only got 50. He only gets about 50 points a year, and blah 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 blah. And coach telling me last year that he's soft and that he's, that he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that and he doesn't do that. Well, it's not about points with this guy. And one of the reasons why that line is one of the best lines in the NHL is because of the things that Slafkovsky does off the puck. It's the things he does off the puck. Because if he wasn't doing those things off the puck, the other two guys would have to do it. And if they're doing it, then who's scoring the goals and who's setting up the goals? Who's going and winning those battles on the boards? It's Slafkovsky that's doing it. And because Slafkovsky's doing it, and he's also really good at then, he also has the skill to then, make the play, like the transition plays and all that other stuff. That's why Slafkovsky's really, really important. So I'm with you 100% PLW. I think you're 100% bang on about that. And unfortunately, I wish more Montreal Canadiens fans would understand that, not just with Slafkovsky, but with a lot of players. Kirby Dach, right? Everyone thinks, well, Kirby Dach, Kirby Dach has had a great beginning of the season, and it's because he does the same things you're talking about that Slafkovsky does. He's big. He has a big wingspan, long stick, creates turnovers in his own end, good forechecker, good at creating turnovers in the neutral zone, wins puck battles. It's not just about, he's got this many points or he's got this many goals and this many assists. Right? There's a lot of different aspects to their games than that. 3 back-to-back straight at the end of November. So there's an opportunity. There's a situation where you want to make sure that both of your goalies are firing on all cylinders, right? If you're going to have 3 back-to-backs in relatively close succession, you're going to want to have 2 goalies that are playing well. In all the second C, we may not need to spend an asset. Kapanen, checking all the boxes as of now, along with great chemistry with Demidov. Yeah, I agree to an extent with that. I don't know that Kapanen or Kapanen will be your 2C at the end of the day. I think he would be a perfect 3C on a team that's contending. But you're right. If he does start to develop chemistry with Demidov, then that could change. That could definitely change. So I don't know. I agree with you completely that they don't need to go out there and farm a 2C. This conversation about them being desperate or needing a 2C is not is not accurate in my opinion. But I don't know that Kapanen or Kapanen is the guy in the long term to fill that role. Kapanen, because of his, computer, as Marty St. Louis likes to say, and a guy who understands the game, knows the system, plays the system right. Marty feels like he can put him on the ice at any time and not feel concerned that he's going to, but you might want a more dynamic offensive player in the long run to play that role, especially alongside Demidov, whether that's Michael Hage, whether that's somebody else, whether it's, somebody who's more of a Slafkovsky, right? You don't necessarily need a guy, and this could be Kapanen, it could be Michael Hage, it could be Kirby Dach, right? You may not need a guy who, is a big point producer. You might need that guy who is, maybe only going to get 50, 60, 70 points, but sets things up for guys like Caulfield and Suzuki, right? So if you've got, Demidov and Hage on a line, you might have another guy who's, the guy who, wins battles along the boards and retrieves pucks and does that job. Peter August, welcome back. I think this is the first time we've seen you on the show this year. Welcome. 2 good points tonight. We didn't play the best game. I agree. I thought the Canadiens, and I've said it, the Canadiens struggled in the first period especially. But 2 points is 2 points. And, sometimes, the sign of a really good team is a team that wins even though they're not, playing their best hockey. People also dump on Jack Eye. Others make mistakes and no problem. Arbor makes a mistake and gets a penalty and it's sit him down. Yeah, I agree. I think that Jack Eye catches more flack than he deserves. I do think his game is a work in progress, and I do think he has room to improve. But you're right. You don't expect your third pairing defenseman to be, perfect. If they were perfect, they would be first pair defensemen. So Jack-I makes mistakes, but again, he's a young guy who's a late bloomer. He's still working on his game, and he's a guy who I think the Canadiens envision playing a certain role on the team. I have really, really strong opinions about what Jack-I can and should become. In that sense, I have him rated ahead of somebody like Struble in the pecking order of things. But we'll see where things go. The Canadiens are going to have to make some decisions, I think, as time goes by, because they've got Struble and Jack-I, but then they've also got Engstrom coming along, and perhaps Reinbacher, at some point is going to be coming up as well. You even got guys like Kanyushkov who may get into the conversation as time goes by. So we'll see. I mean, to me, Jack-I just brings such a unique set of skills and physical attributes that he's hard to take out of the conversation. Kapanen is an elite Evans, but no 2C. I tend to agree with that. I mean, if you've got a team where Kapanen is your 3C, I think you've got a pretty solid team. But then you've got guys like Owen Beck, who are in that conversation. Florian Jack-I, whether he's a winger or a center, is in that conversation. So again, there's decisions that are going to need to be made there as well. Do you have a third line that has Owen Beck and Kapanen on it? I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty special, if you've got a third line with, Kapanen and Beck and I don't know who else, who are we talking about? Like Newhook, right? Newhook is showing a pretty good two-way game. Like that's, if you've got a fourth line with, Jack-I and Evans and whoever, and then you've got a third line of Kapanen and Beck and Newhook or Bolduc. I don't know. There's a lot of talent there, and there's a lot of options there for the Canadiens, and I think we're going to see some decisions that are going to have to be made, and I mean, and then you even get in a situation where what if you've got Kapanen on your fourth line, right? What if you've got a guy with the talent of a Kapanen playing on your fourth line? You've got like a Owen Beck and Kapanen and Evans on your fourth line, and on your third line you've got like Bolduc and Newhook and Hage. So again, there's a lot of talent coming up, and it'll be interesting to see how the Canadiens manage that. Doc is his own worst enemy, needs to throw caution to the wind. I think Doc has played fantastic hockey so far this year. I think he's played really, really well. I think he's on his way back. I like him a lot. In fact, I named him to the A team tonight, right? There's your A team for tonight. Tonight he's on my A team. I thought he was one of the best players for Montreal. I thought he played really, really well. If you sit Arbor or only get 8 minutes per game time of ice, then how is he supposed to develop? I don't disagree. I think that one of the issues that I would have with Martin St. Louis is the fact that he falls in love a little. I shouldn't say that. He doesn't fall in love, but he's getting more and more caught up in the idea that he can only play certain guys. Right? Did Jack-I only play 6 minutes and 37 tonight? Yeah, that's not ideal. That's not ideal. I find that Marty is now becoming one of those coaches that only plays certain guys, and it's turning in. You're back in a situation where you've got Matheson played 27 minutes tonight. That's not acceptable. And I get that Goulie's out of the lineup, but you can't have Matheson playing 27 minutes. I don't care. It's not good for him long term to be playing those kinds of minutes. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. I agree with you about Arbor Jack-I that you can't you can't have him playing those kinds of minutes. What did Struble play? Struble played 12:45. So I don't know. Unfortunately, not on the same page for Doc. I guess you know it. I think he is not have good lecture in his D zone today when Caulfield got hit viciously. Doc, 6'4", was hiding behind. Well, I don't know that he was hiding behind Veleno. He was, Veleno got there first and he was coming in after. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of having to jump a guy immediately after he hits somebody anyway. I don't know that that's the smartest way to go. I don't think it really helps your team to do that. I think there's opportunities to get people later on in the game, take a number. But again, you can look at the statistics and you can look at the number as far as Doc goes. He's playing significantly better than he did last year. He's having, a great season so far. And he was a great player, in 22-23 before he got injured in 23-24, 2 games into the season. He was one of the best players, if not the best player on the team. And so, for him to get anywhere near back to that is a great thing for the Canadiens. He was great tonight. He's skating a lot better. I think we're seeing the benefits of the work that he put in the offseason. But it is what it is. 95% of NHL 6-foot players would jump in. Well, again, I think that's the a little bit of the machismo in you coming out, PLW. We all want to talk tough and whatever and say that, if I was 6'4", I would jump in there. Well, you know what? Evander Kane's not the funnest guy to tangle with. And again, I don't think that it's to the team's benefit. What was the score at that point, right? What's the benefit to your team? I think they were tied when that happened. What's the benefit to your team of jumping in and getting an instigator penalty at that point anyway? So I don't agree with that. I think that whole concept of having to jump a guy immediately after a hit like that, they were getting a power play. They got a power play, and I think they even scored on the power play while Evander Kane was in the penalty box. So I'm not sure I agree with your idea that it would have been a good thing for Doc to have sort of, or Veleno or whoever to have jumped in there and made more of that situation. Carey made a boat of mistakes tonight and caused at least 2 goals. Okay, I think you were maybe watching a different game than I did. Let's see. Carrier tonight. Expected goals against percentage. Let's go. Let's see what we got. Canadiens. Where are you? Canadiens and Canucks. I have Carrier on my A team tonight. Carrier had 2 assists, first of all. I know that off the top of my head. Carrier tonight, in all situations, he's 40%, I guess. So not the best in the world as far as expected goals for percentage. He had giveaways tonight. 0 giveaways and 0 takeaways for Carrier tonight. So I don't know I'm agreeing with you on boatload of mistakes tonight for Carrier. The other thing with Carrier you have to keep in mind is that he's covering for he's sort of covering for that third pairing a little bit tonight. So MSL doesn't run the bench for the defenseman. It's Robida. Yeah. Again, I think you could probably say that, but I think it's also a situation where I would say that Marty St. Louis probably has some impact there. If you don't play him so that he can develop, then send him to Val or trade him. Can't have your cake and eat it too. Again, I think that they want to develop him. I think that if they didn't feel like there was any benefit, they would have sent him down. I'm not sure that he can go down at this point. I think he almost certainly would get picked up on waivers if they tried to send him down to Laval. But again, I think that they do believe that there's something there, and I think that they do believe that there is some benefit to him and that there is some development going on by keeping him in the NHL. I don't mind Doc with his current usage and his current role compares advantageously versus other teams' lineup. Okay. Again, I think you and I have different opinions on Kirby Doc. I think he's a much more valuable player than you do. I think the Canadiens view him as being a much more valuable player than what you do, um, PLW. But I guess we can agree to disagree on that. The worst thing I find with that is if Jack Eye goes to a different team, he doesn't make another NHL roster, in my opinion. Yeah, I disagree completely with that. I think that Jack Eye would get picked up in 10 seconds on waivers, and I think that he would be a productive player on a lot of teams. And I think the Canadiens view him. I think the Canadiens view him as being a guy who will be, already is to a certain degree. I think that Jack Eye and the team needs to work on what his role is and how he can best accomplish that role. And I think that Jack Eye has an opportunity to be a unicorn and to revolutionize a little bit the role of the quote-unquote enforcer in the NHL. And abandon some of the traditional approaches to enforcing in the NHL and take a bit of a different approach to it. Carrier had great moments and a couple of bad ones. He was responsible for the first goal and maybe another one, but also responded well. At other times, played many minutes. I'm not a big, this guy was responsible for a goal. I mean, typically there's a number of people that are responsible for a goal, or that, it's rare to me that you can say that one guy is, solely responsible for a goal. But Carrier has earned the benefit of the doubt a little bit, Peter. I mean, let's be honest. He's been a more reliable defenseman than Arber Xhekaj has been typically. And anybody who's regular here knows I'm a huge Arber Xhekaj fan. Huge Arber Xhekaj fan. I've spoken positively. In fact, I think I might even put him on the A team for the game against Calgary. I'm a huge Arber Xhekaj fan. Like, huge. Like when people were dumping on him and saying he needs to be traded or whatever, I've been, the biggest defender of him. But that said, I mean, Alex Carrier has been a much more steady and solid defenseman for the Canadiens, and he's earned the benefit of the doubt. That said, I do think that Marty St. Louis, not just with Arber Xhekaj, but Marty St. Louis has become a coach who now, remember early on during the rebuild, Marty St. Louis was well known as being a guy who, if a player makes a mistake, he'll throw him right back out on the ice, and allow him to learn from that, and including Arber Xhekaj, right? Arber Xhekaj was a guy who made the team at a camp when he was, 20 years old or whatever he was, and nobody thought he would make the team. He was undrafted in junior, and somehow made the Montreal Canadiens, and he played on the team, and when he screwed up, they put him right back out on the ice. But I think they're at a stage now where wins are more important than they were back then. And I think to his detriment, and again, this is one of my few complaints about Marty St. Louis is he now has sort of become that coach who, I can't put that guy on the ice right now because he's not, I'm not comfortable with him. He's not reliable enough. He's not, and I think that Xhekaj kind of falls victim to that. And again, I'm agreeing with you that he, he probably doesn't deserve to take that or to be treated that way, or to be, he should have more. But Carrier is going to get more of the benefit of the doubt because, realistically, he's a more solid defenseman and he's a more reliable guy. And, if Goulet were still in the lineup, then you would see Xhekaj and Carrier out there together, and they would probably make each other better, right? Carrier would make Xhekaj better, and Xhekaj would probably make Carrier better. But now Carrier is sort of jumping around between Struble and Xhekaj and whatever. And, because, there's a little bit more, a little bit less consistency there without Xhekaj in the lineup. There was more of a picture than getting an expansion. Because he has given a much longer cord than Arbor and a couple of others. Well, but he's given a much longer, he's given more rope, I think is what you're trying to say. He's given a lot more rope because he's earned that rope. He's earned that rope, right? Carrier's earned it. I mean, again, I love Arbor Jackeye, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that certainly from a defensive perspective, that Carrier hasn't been a better defensive or more solid defensive player than Jackeye. I love Jackeye, and I think that he has probably I think he's probably been better than what he's deserved or has deserved better than what he's gotten. But that said, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, that Carrier has been fantastic, right? Ever since he joined the Canadiens last year at Christmas time, he's been a fantastic addition to the team. Now he brings a completely different skill set or a different, what he brings is a lot different than what, than what Jackeye brings. But, as far as, if you look at it from Marty St. Louis' perspective, you feel a lot more comfortable putting Carrier on the ice than you do Jackeye, although Jackeye, different situations. But again, I think that Jackeye needs to or can develop into being a guy who brings a much different dynamic than anybody else on the Montreal Canadiens can bring, including, the guys who are in the top four. My main problem with Jackeye is I can live with roughness and intensity type of penalties, not holding, hooking, interference, tripping penalties. I think that Jackeye, I mean, is the same with again, this is part of him revolutionizing the position of the quote-unquote enforcer, is that, I think he gets treated a certain way by referees because of who they think he is. And I think that if he plays his cards properly, and if he plays, again, I could get into this at great length about how I think he could play and revolutionize the enforcer position. But part of that would be not being the guy who the referees are looking out for, right? Like not a guy who, jumps guy. I think that for Arbor Jackeye to be successful in the NHL, he needs to take a lot of the emotion out of his role on the team. I think he needs to play more with his brain and less with his heart, right? When he fights guys or when he goes out there and intimidates guys, he needs to do it with a strategic perspective more than I'm pissed off at you, I'm going to jump on your back and beat the shit out of you perspective, right? So he needs to be a guy who intimidates and enforces strategically, as opposed to one who intimidates and enforces because he's angry or he's mad or he's trying to get revenge on a guy, right? So, he's not a guy who's going out there looking for fights, looking for hits or whatever, but he's doing it, and staying under control and using his brain. And so he doesn't be that guy or become that guy that the referees are looking out for, right? And now he's a guy who the referees are looking out for. And when there's a rumble after the whistle and he gets involved, he automatically is the guy who gets singled out, right? He's the guy who gets picked out of the crowd because he's the guy who has the reputation, or he's the guy who did it last time, or that the referees are, we got to keep an eye out for Arbor Jackeye because he's this guy or that guy or whatever. And so that's part of the process. I'm not saying Arbor is better than Carrier. I'm merely saying that how do you develop a player when you don't? That's the big issue, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say, Peter, is that I think that you're right. It's hard to develop a player when he's playing such less minutes. I mean, I think the argument would be that you're developing him, by having him around the team and having him at practice and having him in team meetings and having him, do this, that, and the other thing. But you're right. The team has moved away from the development stage to a certain degree to the stage where they need to do everything to win. And I think this is, to me, again, I said it earlier, this is to me where I have one of my few complaints about Marty St. Louis is that he does fall in love to a certain degree with players that he feels comfortable with, right? And sometimes you need to put Arbor Jackeye on the ice and say, let's see what happens. I might be more comfortable putting Carrier out there because I think that Carrier is a guy who is less prone to putting us in tough situations. But if I want Arbor Jackeye to be the guy that I want him to be, then I have to throw him in. It's just the penalty kill, right? If Arbor Jackeye is going to play regularly for the Montreal Canadiens and start being a guy who plays 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes a game, he's going to need to be a guy who kills penalties. Well, he's never going to kill penalties unless you put him out there and try him on a penalty kill. But right now, Marty St. Louis is in a situation where every time they have a penalty kill, he doesn't want to put Jackeye out there because he'd much rather put Mike Matheson out there or Noah Dobson out there or Alex Carrier out there because he knows those guys are, he's more comfortable with those guys. But, Jackeye, he's never going to get comfortable with Arbor Jackeye out there on the penalty kill unless he starts putting him out there on the penalty kill. Right? And so that's the tough part, right? That's the tough part. When do you give him that experience? When do you give him that opportunity to make you feel comfortable with him? And again, this is where I have one of my few complaints about Marty St. Louis is that, he's in love with that feeling. And this is not just a Marty St. Louis thing. It's a hockey coach thing in general, right? Their success, their livelihood is so driven by winning that it's hard for them to put guys on the ice that may not give them the best chance of quote unquote winning, right? And early on in the rebuild, he was more willing to do that because it wasn't just about winning, it was about developing and building the team towards a better place. But now there's more of a concern. We have to win every night. We have to win. It's not about, we can put, Lane Hudson out there, or I'm trying to think of other, Caden Gooley, right? Caden Gooley on a lot of teams would have never played the kind of games number of games and situations that he played early on in his career because, those teams would have been more worried about winning. But he was able to play those minutes and get that ice time. Same with, Caulfield and Suzuki and Slavkovsky. Like Slavkovsky probably, wouldn't have played as an 18-year-old in the NHL on a lot of teams, but he was able to. And that's kind of where, St. Louis has gotten to now, where he, falls in love with certain guys, and it's more about who do I put on the ice that makes me feel comfortable. And, the development side of things has kind of gone by the wayside. We're getting long in the tooth here, guys. We've been on the air for over 2 hours, and I think we're going to start trying to shut her down. Who's your team, Fitness King? I think you're an LA King. You're a Vancouver Canucks fan, are you not? His name is Arbor, Arber, Peter. By the way, again, this is a comment that I'm not a fan of right here. I use Arbor as a forward. Again, Arbor Jackeye has no place on the Montreal Canadiens as a forward. It's just a fact, right? We talked earlier about all of the guys they have in the bottom six and the opportunities. And Arbor Jackeye as a forward makes absolutely no sense for the Montreal Canadiens. You're going to turn a guy who's never played forward his entire life as a forward, and you're going to expect him to make the team. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. Again, he can't develop in Laval. You can't get him to Laval, Peter. You can't develop Arbor Jackeye in Laval. If you put Arbor Jackeye on waivers, there's 25 teams that will line up to take him away from you on waivers. So there's the idea of him going to Laval is just not going to happen. It's not, right? There's no scenario where Arbor Jackeye goes to Laval. Teams will line up to grab Arbor Jackeye if you put him on waivers and try to send him to Laval. All right, gang. I think that's going to be just about it for tonight. This was a great. We kept things going here. It was a little bit slow at the beginning of the show, but things picked up. Thank you, PLW. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Fitness King. Thank you, Randy. There were, I think, who else do we have? CBs as well was in there having a chat there at the end. Thanks so much for the conversation, guys. That is the way I would love the show to go every night, where we're having good conversation, good commentary, not just me blabbing along. I hope you guys enjoyed. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. J'aime bien ça, avoir des commentaires, beaucoup de conversations. Au lieu de moi juste parler, c'est vous qui me donne des questions. Wiggs, what's up? Wiggs is new here. Dobie has to be number one at this point. Well, again, I guess it depends on what you mean by number one, Wiggs. I don't agree completely with that, but I'm not going to get into it because we talked about it at length. I would certainly invite you to go back and look at the conversation that we had about 20 minutes ago. Go watch the replay of the show and see what the conversation was about there. But that's going to be it for tonight. C'est tout pour ce soir. Si vous aimez l'émission, si vous aimez le contenu, donne-nous un pouce en haut comme ça, a thumbs up, a like. Hit the like button, guys, if you're enjoying the content, whether you're watching here live or whether you're watching on a replay. I see 8 thumbs up and I see 9 people watching, so that would mean that at least one of you who's watching right now hasn't liked the show. I think there's probably more than that because I think some of the people who hit the thumbs up button are no longer watching. There's now 10 of you watching and 8 thumbs up. So if you do enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed yet, hit the button down below. This is not a Dorval Cougars hat. This is a Detroit Tigers hat. I'm trying to do my best Tom Selleck impression. I would never in a million years ever wear a Dorval Cougars hat. I am very much a Lakeshore Brave, PLW, or a Lac St. Louis. I played for Lac St. Louis one year as well, midget AAA. But I'm a born and bred, fully committed Lakeshore Brave. Regularly beat up on the Well, I don't know if we ever played the Dorval Cougars. We certainly played teams in that area, but yeah. Thanks for coming along, Wiggs. I appreciate it. You were coming on here at the end. Maybe next time you can join us earlier on and be a part of the conversation. We go live after every game. But that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks so much for coming. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. C'est tout pour ce soir. Les Canadiens, une autre victoire, 4-3 contre les Canucks de Vancouver. A 4-3 win for the Canadiens over the Vancouver Canucks. The Canadiens now move to a record of 7-3. They are now, let's look at the standings here real quickly. They are now at the top of the Atlantic Division with 14 points, 2 points ahead of the Detroit Red Wings, who have a game in hand. They are 4 points ahead of the Florida Panthers. They are 5 points ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. Of course, the lowly Toronto Maple Leafs sit with 9 points at a 4-4 record. And the Bruins are well behind in the Tampa Bay Lightning in last place, of course. But you refused to trade to the Lakeshore Braves. Well, you should have played with the Lakeshore Braves, PLW. You probably would have had a lot more success and a lot more fun. But we were regular champions. We won just about every year that I ever played for them. I played Pee-wee, Bantam, and I never played midget. I played midget AAA for Lac St. Louis. Yeah, Lakeshore, we beat up on everybody. We beat up on Saint Laurent. We beat up on Ile Perrot. We beat up on West Island. We beat up on all those guys. So anyways, that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching. That's a long show, but I hope that you did enjoy. If you're watching live, give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Join the Recliner Sports family. If you're watching in a replay, same thing. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Otherwise, we will see you all on Tuesday night as the Canadiens take on the let's see what time that game is at. The Canadiens take on Seattle, but is it a late night game? It's a 10:30 Eastern time start, which means it starts at 11:30 my time. There's a possibility that I won't do a live show after that, just because the game probably won't end until like 2:30 my time, and I'm not staying up till 4 in the morning. So, anyways, we will see you all next time. I hope you have a great night. You can go to bed tonight, PLW, with dreams about your imagined kryptonite over the Lakeshore Braves. You never, we never lost to you guys back in those days. But we'll see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great night. I enjoyed the show. It was a great time. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bonsoir. À la prochaine. Merci et bonsoir. I can't get the screen to change here.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.